At the peak, this North Scottsdale home was valued at over $1 million. Tomorrow, it's on the auction block after sitting on the market for months. The starting bid, $329,000.
S&P Case-Shiller Home Price Index showed a decrease of 18.7%. The co-creator of the index says this decline may continue for some time.
This time next year, I think housing will be on a positive trajectory, and of course that's a big plus for the economy.
Mixed bag on the real estate front today, with housing starts falling to their lowest level since 2009 for December, while building permits.
Well, the areas that are going to be more depressed for longer would include the areas that have been hit hard with foreclosures, the obvious areas like Florida, Arizona, Nevada.
We have to look to really kind of read the tea leaves as to where the housing market is headed.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Steve Rundle with AZ Real Estate Radio. Your host, as always, every day here at 4 to 4:30. In studio with me, as always, as well, Sean Ybarra with Practice Credit. How you doing, Sean?
Outstanding. How are you today?
I'm real well, thanks.
Good.
Hey, we had a pretty great week in respect to a lot of calls, a lot of emails coming into the website. Which,
lots of chatter.
Lots and lots of chatter. I mean, it's looking sharp. We did a couple tweaks and revisions out there. I don't know if everyone's checked it out yet, but it's www.azrealestateradio.com. Again, that's www.azrealestateradio.com. And there's a lot of good information. We're adding new stuff to it every day. Free reports, Q&As, just stuff that you can interact and get out there and find out more information, more specifically about topics that we're discussing.
Yeah, we're calling that the library, I guess.
The library?
Yeah, that's what because it has so much stuff on there. I mean, there's stuff from real estate information, how to get pre-approved, how to set up a mortgage, how to do multiple different things on that part, all the way to budgeting tools, credit repair, bankruptcy, foreclosure, how-tos, that kind of thing. So, I mean, there is a plethora of information there to where anybody can get what they're looking for in one bona fide resource.
And Sean, tell me, because I know you track more of the website stuff, what are people looking for when they come to our website? What are the most questions that you're seeing right now?
The topics this last week really were how do we choose a agent?
Sure, that's a great question.
I mean, how do you choose a real estate agent?
How do you know who to work with?
It was how do I choose an agent, or how do I research an agent to find whether or not they can do a short sale successfully.
How could I trust these crazy guys on the radio?
Exactly.
They put up a website, they start talking.
And people start going there and watching videos. I mean, it's getting crazy.
Exactly. So it's a valid question, too, and we get it all the time at the office. Real estate in particular is one of the biggest purchases most people are going to buy. And
I think it's the largest, isn't it?
I would have to say, well, it depends on what market you're looking at. I've seen some pretty cheap, $30,000 homes in the Valley recently, and I've seen people pull up in, $60,000, $70,000 cars. So, who knows?
Who knows exactly?
It normally is. It typically is the largest purchase that anyone ever is going to make, or their biggest investment, so they say. And it's important when making that investment that you're working with the right person, or at least someone who knows what they're doing in all aspects. I mean, it's not just, hey, go find me a house. It's, hey, great, we found a house. Now what? I mean, a lot of people who come into our office, one of the questions is, well, what are you going to do for me? Well, hold on, let me pull out my huge list, because it's not just sending you properties. It's not just trying to find a home and going and showing you this home and driving you all over the place and looking for the right property. But it's also, referring you to great references, helping you with your financing. Not that we do financing, but we've seen in the business enough loans that we can make recommendations if your loan officer hasn't, put forth, the effort to say, hey, look, the only product we have is a 20% down. Well, that may not necessarily be the case. There's other financing options available depending on location, especially here in the Valley. I mean, there's some USDA options out there that are zero down payment.
So it's really trying to find somebody that's practicing their trade.
Absolutely. I mean, you figure, I know you have a lot of years of experience. I do as well. I know Andrew, who's not with us today, and probably won't be with us here for the week. But you have to have that experience, and if not the experience, because I have a rookie agent that works with us. As long as he's having good mentoring behind him, I mean, everything that he does and puts together, we're reviewing constantly to make sure that all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed. Everything that comes through his hands comes to me personally. I look at it, make sure it's okay, and then say, yes.
So it's the double check.
It really is, and you have to have that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a rookie agent. We all were rookies at one point in time.
Absolutely.
But you have to know, what's the experience of the brokerage in general. Where are these guys coming from? What kind of hands-on resources are they utilizing in order to make the transaction go smooth?
If it comes down to this, I was talking to a client this past week, and he has recently he was a want-to-be investor.
Right.
He had 4 properties.
Right.
He was doing really well. Then he got to a point where it just didn't make financial sense.
Yep.
We talked about that last week.
Yep.
About does it make sense, does it not make sense. He opted to where it didn't make sense.
Sure.
So what we did is that we started looking at that information. He went through the interviewing process.
Right.
I think we were probably the 4th company that he talked to. And these were all 30 or 40-minute conversations.
Right.
He was trying to figure out what we knew versus what we didn't know. And he initially talked to one of our rookie agents.
Right.
Okay, and so the system is already set in place to where it goes to a certain level. It goes through his expertise.
Mm-hmm.
If it gets past his expertise, rather than him trying to fumble and not close the deal,
right,
so to speak, it gets passed on to the next guy,
right,
to a senior guy. Then it gets passed on until it finally gets to whoever can handle that expertise at that point in time.
Absolutely.
And I think that's important to know that whenever you're looking for an agent, regardless whether it's in real estate, mortgage, credit repair, debt settlement, whatever that may be, that you, number one, look for people that have been through these people.
Sure.
I think that's the best source, because then you have practical experience with them personally.
Absolutely. And one of the things, I mean, what I like about us as a broker is we're a boutique brokerage. We're not on a large scale. We're not a national brokerage. We're not anything like that. We're here locally. We work with local people. We know the Valley in and out because we've been working in the Valley for, the last 12 years. And it's nice to be able to, if you're having a problem with one of my agents, I'm not, 50 steps to get to me. I'm one call away. Or if my agents have problems with clients or if, they're having challenges on a deal, they can reach me almost immediately. Hey, look, let's get this figured out so we can move forward through the transaction, or, apply the appropriate steps that need to be in order to back out of the transaction. Because, our biggest part on anything, let it be a buying purchase or a short sale, is minimizing our risk. I mean, I practice that, I want to find you the best house, but my real job is to minimize the risk in purchasing that house, because we can find houses. It's just, I want to make sure you're never exposed to losing money.
Which that's one of the biggest things that we come across as well. I mean,
sure.
Because when people come through and they typically do it the wrong way.
Right.
They go find their house first. Then they start worrying about their mortgage. Then their mortgage guy goes, you got credit problems. And so then we're up against the deadline, and it's kind of making sure that we have realistic expectations and keeping the communication lines open to the realtor and the mortgage officer, saying, hey, we don't have a shot at closing your deadline.
Right.
I'm sorry. I wish we could, but realistically, we either need to get out of this deal or we need to reevaluate the time frame.
Absolutely. And I can't tell you, so many people do that. And a lot of people jump that gun. And we like to think of ourselves as educators, because what most people think, because you can these days go on Zillow or Trulia or a lot of these other internet websites, Realtor.com, and check out houses and be like, oh, I want to see that house. And you're like, okay. And the first thing you do is pick up a phone, and who do you call? You don't call your lender. You don't call your credit repair guy.
You call the person that's on that page.
You call that person on that page and say, hey, look, I want to see your house for sale. And, of course, that person is obliged, because they're probably a listing agent, to try and find a client for their seller, and they're going to show the house and let the folks in, and maybe they love the house, they fall in love with it, but they haven't qualified that buyer. They haven't qualified, if they're able to purchase that particular home from a credit perspective, from a money perspective.
Exactly. There's too many moving parts there to really do it that way.
Sure. And so, I mean, whereas a perfect client would probably come to you first if they knew they had some credit blemishes, or if not, then go to someone like Andrew, who's a lender first. That would be the ultimate situation, because then the financing portion is out of the way, and we know what we can qualify for. We know what we can purchase.
And you don't fall in love with something that you can't afford.
Yeah, that's the worst thing to happen is, people fall in love with that one house that they never can have. Why can't I have this house? Well, you can't qualify for this house. Or because someone else has already bought it. That's another thing in this market. We have particular statuses that don't get updated on a lot of the syndicated sites. So they'll always say and remain active. And so they'll come in and say, hey, I want to see this house. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that house isn't available anymore. It's off the market. There's a contract on it. Well, that's the one I fell in love with. That's the one I want. And that's where it's really important to get in touch with a realtor so that they can make contact with the listing agent, look up the listing, get the full details, get the research out of the way to say, look, I understand you love that house. It's no longer available, or in some cases, I've even seen them closed. That's how old the information is out on the internet. And just to make sure we're looking not only in realistic price ranges, but in realistic areas and homes that are available as opposed to not. Because there's nothing more frustrating for people to continue to look and look and look and look and look and constantly see properties either that aren't available or out of their price range.
Absolutely. And so now what causes this data on the MLS not to be updated?
Well, a lot of the sites, the MLS is probably the best resource. It's not probably. It is the best resource out there and available. And because it's so monitored and constantly updated, the people that put the information in are the people who have the actual property listed for sale. And the people who make that change are the people who actually have the property listed for sale. So,
which makes sense.
That would only make sense that the person who knows the most about the information in the MLS are the people who are actually inputting the data into the MLS. And that's hands-on. That's myself. That's my agents. That's other agents in the Valley, other brokerages. They're all entering that information in essentially real time. If I had a contract come in today, I'm putting it into a status of pending or AWC, and those statuses mean I got a contract, and here's the terms of that contract. I'm waiting on a contingency, maybe it's financing, maybe it's a short sale, maybe it's something else that.
So now we got a pretty broad spectrum of all of our listeners here. So let's make sure that we understand what it is that we're talking about, because the savvy investors, they know exactly what the MLS is.
Yep.
So let's identify for the new first-time home buyers what the MLS is, how that works,
sure,
who gets access to it, because we've talked about 3 other sites here that you don't need access to.
That's correct.
So after the break, let's go ahead and come back and let's readdress those.
Sounds good, Sean.
And we'll go from there.
All righty.